The gunfight at the OK Corral is one of the most depicted events in cinema. And yet, most Hollywood depictions of the gunfight are very inaccurate. Tombstone stands apart as arguably one of the most historically accurate movies in depicting the events of the gunfight at the OK Corral. This video will discuss the real history behind the people of the movie Tombstone. We have to start with Wyatt Earp. Wyatt was born the fourth child of 8 children. 3 were girls and 5 were boys. The oldest was James. The next was Virgil, then Wyatt and Morgan, and Warren was the youngest. Tombstone only depicts Virgil and Morgan because only these 2 were with Wyatt at the OK Corral, but his brothers James and Warren also lived in Tombstone but were not present at the gunfight. Wyatt Earp was born in Illinois to a father who was a traveling vagrant. His father and his family would travel around and try to set up a new life, fail in one town, pick up and move and set up somewhere else. One of the places they settled was San Bernardino, California, where Wyatt Earp grew up. When Wyatt was 18, his family picked up and moved again. They moved to Missouri, where his father became a local constable for 3 years. When his father retired, Wyatt was 21 years old, and Wyatt took his father's place as the town constable. He married the daughter of a local hotel owner, and it looked like this was going to be his life, a very calm and domesticated life. However, this is not what destiny chose for him. A year into this happy marriage, tragedy struck, and his wife and unborn child died of typhoid fever. Wyatt Earp was devastated, and he went into a downward life spiral, drinking, gambling, and stealing horses. Historical evidence suggests that Wyatt may have run the local brothel for the next 4 years. Wyatt began to commit crimes and was arrested many times for stealing horses. In one incident, he was arrested but escaped through the roof of the jail and left town. At the age of 26, Wyatt Earp moved to Dodge City, Kansas, known at the time as the wickedest place on earth, where he worked as the assistant marshal. This is where he earned the reputation as an effective lawman. Wyatt Earp was a tall man. He was likely over 6 foot tall, which towered over most people in the 1870s. There are some rumors he may have been as tall as 6 foot 4 inches. Wyatt was very strong and had a very imposing stature. He could intimidate people just by walking into a room. If people were rowdy or breaking the law at a bar, he would take out his gun and pistol whip the perpetrator on the side of his head with the butt of his gun and knock them out. This was known as buffaloing a person. Then he would just drag them to jail, and no one got shot or killed. They could wake up with a hangover and a bruise on their head, and the next day they would go back to the bar and spend more money. That's why the town liked him. He was able to keep law and order and nobody died. He was very good at keeping order in the Dodge City saloons. In Dodge City, he met Maddie Blaylock, who was a prostitute, and also met gambler Doc Holliday and his wife, Big Nose Kate, as well as legendary gunfighter Bat Masterson. However, someone actually died, and this caused him to leave Dodge City. He moved back to California, where he worked as a guard for Wells Fargo. He then got a message from his brother, Virgil, who was the marshal of a small silver mining town near Tombstone, and saw an opportunity for the Earp family to make money in Tombstone. Virgil called on the brothers to convene on this town. Doc Holliday was also a real figure in the Wild West. He was also reputed to be a skilled gambler, a skilled gunfighter with a reputation for being a sadistic killer. However, there is some evidence that he may not have killed as many people as his reputation suggested. John Henry Holliday was born in Georgia. He was born to a wealthy aristocratic family. When John Henry Holliday was 15 years old, his mother died of tuberculosis, and he was raised by his father and stepmother. At the age of 20, he graduated dental school in Philadelphia and became Dr. Holliday. At 22, he moved back to Atlanta, Georgia, and started his dental practice. Shortly after he opened his dental practice at the age of 22, Doc Holliday was diagnosed with tuberculosis and given only a few months to live. His own medical doctor suggested that he move to a drier and warmer climate in order to live a little longer. At 22 years of age, Doc Holliday believed that he's going to die anytime. he moved to Texas and lived his life with a death wish. Ironically, from the moment that he was diagnosed with tuberculosis, thinking he would have only months, he went on to live another 14 years. After he moved to Texas with tuberculosis, he actually went on to have a very successful dental practice. Historical evidence shows that he was an award-winning dentist in Texas while he was drinking and gambling. Even with tuberculosis, he continued to practice dentistry for the next 8 years, even as he gambled and he was traveling across the country. However, he began to gamble more and began to drink more and more. Soon, his dental practice began to suffer. As his dental practice went on the downward spiral, he would support his income by robbing stagecoaches. In real life, Doc Holliday carried a huge Bowie knife. He may have murdered a few people with that knife. However, historians believe that Doc Holliday, while he did murder some people, did not murder as many people as he was reputed. Holliday was a murderer, but Doc Holliday also liked that reputation of being a murderer and encouraged the rumors. If suspicions came out that he killed someone even though he didn't murder them, Holliday would actually encourage those rumors. He loved having that reputation as being a very dangerous man. He enjoyed it when he walked into a room and people would be afraid of his unpredictability. He fostered and encouraged that reputation. However, in reality, he may have only killed as little as 2 men in a gunfight, and most likely did not kill Johnny Ringo. Tombstone was a small town in Arizona, 30 miles north of the Mexican border. The town was founded by a man named Ed Shefflin, who was exploring the area for ore samples. The area was known for Apache attacks. One of his friends warned him that the only thing he would find would be his own tombstone. Ed Shefflin discovered silver. He established a small town and named it Tombstone as a joke. The town grew rapidly after silver was discovered, and in 1981, the town had over 7,000 people. Tombstone had 110 saloons, 14 gambling halls, a bowling alley, and fancy restaurants. The town imported the latest fashions from Paris. As the town grew, so did the demand for beef and cattle. Mexico had lots of cattle, but the Mexican government had large export tariffs, so Mexican cattle was very expensive. Cattle rustlers would sneak into Mexico, steal cattle, and sell them to the people of Tombstone and other towns in Arizona for much cheaper than the Mexicans. Plus, it was all profit for the rustlers. A whole industry of organized cattle rustlers emerged to take advantage of this situation. When the Earps arrived in Tombstone, they began to have clashes with the cowboys. This was a clash between the two worlds of the city folk of the Wild West and the cattlemen of the countryside. There were also political clashes when running for offices. The Earps were Republicans and were entrenched in the city. They did not understand farming or cattle raising. They certainly did not have sympathy for cattle rustling. The cowboys were Democrats and lived outside the town. They saw the Republicans as making laws that encroached in their way of life. One of the incidents that worsened the tension between the Earps and the cowboys occurred 1 year before the iconic shootout at the OK Corral. Fred Wyatt was the popular marshal of Cochise County. One night, Curly Bill Brocious was intoxicated, and he and his men were shooting their guns in the air. Marshal Fred Wyatt went to disarm them, and Curly Bill handed his fully loaded and half-cocked gun to Marshal Wyatt. However, the gun went off and shot Wyatt in the groin. Fred would die from this injury 2 days later. Seeing this, Wyatt Earp struck Curly Bill in the head with his gun and knocked him unconscious and dragged him to jail. A Tombstone posse was forming to lynch Curly Bill for killing Marshal Wyatt, but Wyatt Earp saved Curly Bill's life by taking him out of the town to Tucson, Arizona, where Brocious had his trial. Before dying from his injuries, Wyatt gave a statement that the gun went off accidentally and it was not Curly Bill's fault. Wyatt Earp also corroborated that the gunshot was likely accidental. Therefore, during the trial, Curly Bill was found innocent. Curly Bill liked Fred Wyatt and was very regretful that he had accidentally killed him. However, he harbored a grudge against Wyatt Earp for pistol whipping him and knocking him out on the night of the incident. Meanwhile, Virgil Earp was appointed Marshal of Tombstone after Fred Wyatt's death. while Fred White is portrayed as an elderly man in Tombstone. In reality, he was only 31 years old at the time of his death. He was 1 year younger than Wyatt Earp. One of the main inciting incidents occurred on March 15, 1881, 7 months before the shootout. A group of cowboys robbed a stagecoach that was transporting silver. The stagecoach got away, but the driver and a passenger were shot and killed. The robbers were identified as Bill Leonard, Harry Head, and Jim Crane. Wells Fargo offered a $3,600 reward for the capture of the 3 men. This was worth over $100,000 in today's money. Wyatt Earp was running for sheriff of Tombstone and felt that capturing the 3 men would help him win the election. Earp went to Ike Clanton and offered him the reward money in exchange for the location of the 3 robbers. Ike agreed to betray his fellow cowboys for the reward money. However, the 3 robbers were killed in an unrelated incident, and Ike did not get any reward money. An undercover Wells Fargo agent named Williams suspected Ike Clanton had double-crossed his own cowboys, and Ike became convinced that Wyatt had gossiped about the double-cross. Clanton was so upset that for the next 7 months, Ike began to openly talk about one day killing Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp had made enemies with the 2 leaders of the cowboys, Curly Bill Brocious and Ike Clanton. The gunfight at the OK Corral took place on October 26, 1881. That morning, Ike Clanton had been up all night drinking and playing poker with Virgil and Doc Holliday and a few others. Later that morning, Ike was then seen walking around town with a shotgun claiming that he would kill the 2 of them. Virgil pistol whipped him, knocked him out, and dragged him to jail. Ike went before the judge, paid a fine, and was released around noon. Virgil and Wyatt then discovered that Ike Clanton, Billy Clanton, Frank McLaury, Tom McLaury, and Billy Claiborne had purchased a bunch of ammunition from the local gun shop. The 5 were observed by witnesses hanging out inside the OK Corral talking about how they were going to kill the Earps. At about 2:30 p.m., Virgil, Wyatt, Morgan, and Doc Holliday went to disarm the cowboys. The 5 cowboys had moved from the OK Corral to the alley behind C.S. Fly's photo studio. Just like in the movie, Sheriff Johnny Biehn tried to defuse the situation by telling the Earps that he had disarmed them, but the Earps didn't believe him. Virgil, Doc, Wyatt, and Morgan arrived at the alley behind Fly's photo studio. The OK Corral was actually 6 doors down from the shootout. The Earps could clearly see that the 5 still had their guns. Virgil testified that he said, "Throw up your hands. I'm here to disarm you." This is the exact line that is used in the movie. This is what Virgil may have intended to say. However, witnesses claim he said something very different and more confusing. Virgil actually said, "Throw down your arms," and "throw up your arms." In other words, he meant to say, "Throw down your guns and throw up your hands." This may have confused the Clantons and the McLaurys, and they reached for their guns. Witnesses said that Virgil attempted to calm the situation and yelled, "Hold, I don't want that." Then Doc Holliday cocked his shotgun. There was years of tension and hate brewing between the Earps and the cowboys, and it was unleashed in the next 30 seconds. A few seconds later, 2 gunshots went off. History does not know who fired the first shot, but the second was Billy Clanton. Billy Claiborne ran away, and Ike Clanton ran into the photo studio. After 30 seconds, Billy Clanton, Tom McLaury, and Frank McLaury were dead. Virgil Earp was shot through the calf. Morgan Earp was shot in the shoulder. Doc Holliday was bruised by a bullet in the hip. Wyatt Earp was unhurt. After the gunfight, Johnny Biehn came to arrest them, and Wyatt Earp really said, "I don't think I'll let you arrest us today." However, 2 days later, the Cowboys filed a legal complaint against Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, and the 2 were arrested. They were jailed, and there was a huge public trial that lasted a month. After official deliberation, the judge found the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday not guilty. And this trial is very important to history. Because of this trial, we actually have official court documents from both sides. A transcript of the trial provides historians' actual detailed account of what happened at the shootout at the OK Corral. This is how historians are able to accurately piece together what really happened. After they were found innocent and released, the Clantons and the McLaurys were very upset. The Cowboys ambushed Virgil, who survived. They murdered Morgan by shooting him in the back while he was playing pool with Wyatt. Just like in the movie, he died in Wyatt's arms. Supposedly, Wyatt and Doc Holliday gave each other a look, and they understood that they couldn't wait for the courts to avenge Morgan, but they were going to have to do it themselves. Thus, Wyatt's vendetta ride begins. The final confrontation between Wyatt Earp and Curly Bill occurs at a ravine where Bill has set up a trap for Earp's posse. In reality, Curly Bill did not actually trap Wyatt and his men. Rather, these two groups accidentally stumbled upon each other. Curly Bill's men were actually camped, and Wyatt Earp and his men accidentally rode up looking for a place to water their horses. They spotted each other, and Curly Bill and his men, dozens of them, they began to shoot at Wyatt and his men. Wyatt just stood there while Wyatt's posse and Doc Holliday bolted and ran away. Wyatt Earp just stood there getting shot at. As these bullets whizzed past him, Wyatt calmly took out his shotgun, slowly aimed, and shot and killed Curly Bill Brocious, all while a hail of bullets were coming at him. One of his men, Texas Jack Vermillion, as he was running away, had his horse shot, and he ended up getting pinned underneath his horse. In the finale of the movie, Doc Holliday kills Johnny Ringo. Johnny Ringo was a prominent member and friend of Curly Bill Brocious. 3 months after Brocious's death, Johnny Ringo was found dead. He is found next to a large tree in West Turkey Creek Valley with a bullet in his right temple. What history does not know is who killed him. Doc Holliday boasted that he killed Johnny Ringo after a gunfight with him at West Turkey Creek Valley and claims to have shot him in the right temple, just as the movie portrays. The real Doc Holliday claimed that Johnny Ringo challenged Wyatt Earp to a gunfight, and he stepped in for Wyatt and killed Johnny Ringo with a faster draw. This is the theory that this movie chose to portray. Many historians doubt this theory because historians believe that during the moment of Johnny Ringo's death, history actually places Doc Holliday in Pueblo, Colorado. Some historians theorize that Johnny Ringo may actually have been killed by either a gambler named Michael O'Rourke or a gunfighter and conman named Buckskin Frank Leslie. Other historians believe that Johnny Ringo may have gotten drunk and committed suicide. After the vendetta ride, Doc Holliday spent his final days at a hotel in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. When Doc Holliday died at age 36 from tuberculosis, his final words were indeed, according to the nurses at the sanatorium where he died. He said, "I'll be damned," after looking at his boot. This is because Doc Holliday always said that he would die with his boots on. In Doc Holliday's mind, he believed that he would die in a gunfight with his boots on and would never let the tuberculosis kill him. He died, stumbling out of bed, grabbing his boots, and trying to put them on. Wyatt Earp met up with Josephine Marcus, and they would begin a 40-year romance. He eventually moved on to California, where he had hoped he could get a movie of his life made, a movie he felt would portray the events of the gunfight at the OK Corral and vindicate him as to why he went on this murder spree. As he got older, he hung around Hollywood movie sets where he would regale people with stories of his life as a gunfighter and lawman. One of his fans was a young actor named John Wayne, who based his speech and public persona on Wyatt Earp. That ends this video on the real history of Tombstone. Please make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Please comment below if you know of any interesting historical facts about Tombstone or the gunfight at the OK Corral.